mention the meaning of words. It just means there's a right way and a wrong way to do it. So this week, we're going to look at the idea that it talks about in chapter 3, verse 1, that perilous times shall come. Perilous times shall come. Deacon Doggett, would you mind reading, Elder Doggett, would you mind reading chapter 3, verses 1 through 9?
This know also that in the last days perilous times shall come. For men shall be lovers of their own selves, covetous, boastful, proud, blasphemous, disobedient to parents, unthankful, unholy, without natural affection, truce breakers, false, accusers, incontinent, fierce, despisers of those that are good, traitors, heady, high-minded, lovers of pleasure more than lovers of God, having a form of godliness, but denying the power thereof. For such turn away. For of this sort are they which creep into houses and lead captive silly women laden with sin, led away with divers lusts, ever learning and never able to come to the knowledge of the truth. Now as Jannes and Jambres withstood Moses, so do these also resist the truth. Men of corrupt minds, reprobates concerning the faith. But they shall proceed no further, for their folly shall be manifested unto all men, as theirs also was.
In the last days, perilous times shall come. In the last days, perilous times shall come. So Paul is concerned. You see this in his letters, both of his letters to Timothy and the letter to Titus. He's concerned that some people are going to turn away from the truth. You see this in Acts chapter 20 when he meets with the Ephesian elders. I believe at Miletus or wherever he met them, Troas, wherever it was he met them. And he said, wolves are going to come in among you from inside, and they're going to turn you away from the truth. He says here that in chapter 3, verse 6, that people will creep into houses and that they'll lead captive silly women. And as a result, in verse 7, it says some people will never be able to come to a knowledge of the truth. So this is a serious threat. It's not like Paul saying, well, just be careful because, this could be a little speed bump on the highway of life. He's like, this is trouble. This will cause disruption. It is dangerous. It is perilous. It's so bad that he says that people like this, that you've got to turn away from them. In verse 5, he says, turn away from them. Get away from those people. You don't just say that about somebody just because they slam the door when they close your car door. Well, I'm just going to turn away from you. Don't talk to me no more. That's too extreme of a reaction. When you're told, stay away from that person, it means they're dangerous. So look at this list that Elder Doggett just read, starting in verse 2, where it says, lovers of themselves and without natural affection. And kind of take a second to kind of look through that list of things again that he read. And see if you can think about what type of person. So these words together describe a type of person. What kind of person is a person that fits some or most or all of these things? Tell me what that person's like. Because we need to figure, if we need to stay away from them, turn away from them, we need to figure out what kind of person is it that is dangerous, that we need to stay away from? You tell me. What are they like?
I think it's a person that compromise.
And why do you think they compromise? What's making them compromise?
Because they want to be able to go to heaven, but they don't want to live by the word.
Yeah. They want to get paid on Friday, but they don't want to come to work on Monday. Huh? All right. I think that's a great description. Give me some more. Give me some more. Fill in the blank on what kind of person fits the description. You know, the police is driving around town, and they stop me and they say, "You fit the description." Right? So how does this person, give me some characteristics of this person so we can identify them, and so we figure out what does it mean to fit the description.
Half-truth, meaning that they will go along with the word, but then they're going to tell only a portion of the truth of what you should be doing. They're not going to give you the fullness of it.
So my daddy was not a particularly spiritual man, but like everybody's daddy, you know, your daddy told stories and said things. So my daddy had these stories, jokes or stories he told over and over and over. I've heard them all 1,000 times, just like your daddy told you something 1,000 times. So one of my daddy's stories was, he said the man was on the witness stand, and they said, "You swear to tell the truth, whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God." He said, "I do, up to a point." And they said, "Up to what point?" He said, "Up to a point where I start lying." And so that's the kind of person you're talking about. He's up to a point. He's with the program. Up to the point where he's not with the program. So he's not completely opposed to it. Kind of fits in with what you said before. He wants some things, and he wants some other things, so he's going to get both of them, even if they're opposite. Excellent. Excellent. What else? Describe this person. Because y'all know him now. Y'all met him. You know your uncle? It's your uncle that lives in the basement of your grandmama's house. He's 60 years old. He's still living with your grandmama. That's him. You know him. And everybody goes, "No, I don't have an uncle like that." You think you got an uncle like that. Yes, you do. Yes, you do. Describe this guy.
One of them is a person that, if you notice it said he shall, that means that's a little slow process of him becoming. Like the scripture says here, it says they shall become lovers of their own selves. So it's a process that it takes time, and many things that can happen in there. Sometimes things can happen to the individual where they slowly get away from the nitty-gritty of really serving God and making it easy for themselves.
What else?
It's somebody that has spiritual schizophrenia.
I think you're on to something.
Meaning like when it goes down further, they said having a form of godliness, meaning like, so what happens is basically they can have all of the attributes, and when it's time for them to put on, they can put on, and they can act like everybody in the church, but then when they outside, they can fit in with that group too, so they can turn it on and off. So they got spiritual schizophrenia.
What do you think is the thing that's driving? Look at the list and tell me what things in the list you think drives them to have the spiritual schizophrenia. And by that you mean they're like two-faced. That's what you're saying, right? They got two sides to them that are opposites.
It's their own diverse lust, because they want to be a part system. They want to be liked by both systems.
The word want is coming up a lot. A lot of people have said they want this, they want that, they want this, they want that. So you see, this list calls them selfish, unthankful, proud, boastful, lover of pleasure more than lovers of God, which means they do love God in part. They just love pleasure more. That's why they have a form of godliness, but they deny its power. It doesn't say they have a form of godliness, but God doesn't give them the power. It says they deny the power. They're the ones that are doing it. So their desire for themselves comes through over and over and over again. That's a person who boasts. That's a person who's proud. That's a person who gossips. That's a person who's disobedient to parents. That's a person who doesn't have any affection toward other people. That's somebody who's a troublemaker, who goes around accusing people falsely. That's the kind of person who's heady and who's a traitor. They'd be your friend today when it's convenient. But then tomorrow, when it's convenient not to, they don't know you. It's all about them. It's about me. Me first. Me, 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 me.
I have a question. Right after proud, it says blasphemous. Let's break that one down.
What do you think? Why is the word blasphemer in the list?
Because of the type of person that we're talking about, to fit in, they do like what Peter did that night. They're cursed. I don't know the guy. I don't know who you're talking about. What the you talking to me about? And you basically saying openly, I'm not siding with him, and I'm not with him either. So you are, in some ways, casting a curse in yourself, a cursing that person, because you're blaspheming the power, the God that you say you love. That's really what you're doing. Speaking evil of them. And anyone that's in the body of Christ, you're doing basically the same thing. Because it says when you receive the gift of the Holy Ghost, you become part of the body. And if I talk evil of you, I'm blaspheming greater. John, whoever it may be. I'm speaking evil of them. And he said when he was here, they don't hate you, they hate me.
So back a few weeks ago, before we began the study of 2 Timothy, I don't know that by discussing what does do not judge mean, that I was thinking about it in terms of applying it to 2 Timothy chapter 3. But I'd like to note that it's relevant because it says in 2 Timothy chapter 3, verse 9, that their folly shall be manifest unto all men. It is visible. You can see it. You can identify it. You can say, "Oh, that I don't need to be imitating that brother. I need to be careful, because the way they live, the words that come out of their mouth, where they go, what they do, how they act, how they live their life, how they conduct themselves, that's dangerous. In fact, maybe, I had a great conversation with somebody today. Somebody that you know who is the kind of person who is kind of like the chicken that stopped in the middle of the road because he wanted to lay it on the line. This person is a person that will just tell you, they're a truth teller. Now, they try to be loving, they try to be gentle, and they try to not just be ugly. They're a very loving person. You know this person. But they're going to, if something isn't right, they're going to say something. And we had a great discussion because I said to this person, don't stop. You keep right on because I need it. Other people need it because they were telling me they said something to somebody and then they're like, well, the person they said it to, the person needed to be told this. But you know how when you tell somebody something, you know they don't really want to hear it, and you aren't even really challenging them about it. You're just asking them why they do it. That's all the person did. They just asked them why they did it. Now, they were implying maybe you ought to not do this, but they didn't, like, get up in the person's face and wave their finger and say something ugly. They just said, well, why do you do that? Because that, that doesn't really, would a person stop talking to them? Now, they'll come back later and talk to them, but it hurt. They're like, what are you getting up in my business for? That's why they stopped talking to them. Now, they didn't say that, but I know the person. They know the person. And I said, that's okay. You need to keep right on. And this brother, who's this guy right here that fits the description of this list, this is somebody we need to go to. We don't need to come to him with a 2x4 and slap him in the head. Well, maybe we do. But first, we don't need to do that first. Okay? And we need to make sure that we don't mistake that the 2x4 that we're trying to get out of him is actually a splinter, and the 2x4 is actually in my eye. We need to get that 2x4 out of my eye first. But then we need to go to this brother, and we need to sit down and say, hey, can we talk? Maybe take him out and maybe go over and spend some time with him and get to know him and play with his dog and go hunting with him and, whatever, find out what his favorite pie is and make him a pie. But then we need to sit down with this brother and say, look, bro, you got to explain something to me because some stuff just don't look right. And see, the humble man who's just, some of us weren't raised right. And I love my mom and dad. I love them to death. They're gone now. But they didn't raise me right. I ain't trying to be ugly. I love them. Appreciate they did so much for me. They helped me so much. But some of you had a better beginning than I did. And I know there are other people in the room, you had a rough beginning. Okay, that's all right. Well, here I am. Some people came and sat me down and had talks with me many times. And whatever I got going on now is probably about 99% because of the conversation. I could tell you some stories. I won't take the time right now, but I could. And maybe this brother, maybe he can be turned around. But if nobody says anything to him, then here's what you're saying. You fine just like you are. But he's not fine just like he is. Now, he needs somebody at the right time, right place, right way, and the right person. Maybe it's not me. Maybe it's not you. But somebody needs to get with this brother and have not just one heart-to-heart. And if he resists, if he's like, you need to go mind your own business. Who died and made you God? Well, maybe you need to back up a step and then come back and, come back another angle. Maybe come back with some backup. But somebody needs to get with this brother. Because we can't let him be like this. And we can't, because see, this brother's going around. I've seen people, I could give you examples, people I've seen, they come to church. I knew a guy that was coming to church. He would go outside the church building and smoke weed. And then he would come in the church building and go talk to every little young, cute little thing in the church building. That's all he would do. And during the service, he'd go outside and smoke weed. Well, you think that's somebody you don't need to pull aside and have a little talk with Jesus with him? You better have a talk with Jesus with him, because he's going around and trying to corrupt some people, and he's looking for who's the weak person who can be fooled by his nonsense. That is this person. Because perilous times shall come. And if you don't do something about it, they're just going to come, and it's going to be, the cake is going to rise, and everybody's going to be eating it, and you're just going to be standing there not knowing what's going on. Eyes open, ears open, head up, paying attention to what's going on around you. Okay, so I got a question for you. Your mama comes to you. Now, this is a serious question. You know, sometimes I can be silly. I'm not being silly, serious. You're living at home. You're still, mom and daddy still taking care of you. Your mama comes to you, and she says, go, clean your room. You ever have that happen to you? Yeah. Go clean your room. Simple statement. Go, clean your room. Go on, clean your room. So, first question is, rhetorical question, just think about it. Did she give you specific, exact instructions about every little detail of what, does that mean dust? Does it mean take the pictures off the wall, clean the pictures, dust them? Does it mean pick up your dirty underwear? Does it mean fold them? Does it mean press your underwear? Does it mean wash your clothes? Does it mean vacuum? Does it mean make your bed? Does it mean get all the junk that's laying on top of your dresser? Does it mean the baseboards that have like 3 years worth of mud caked on them and dust and grime, and you ain't cleaned your baseboards in 3 years? Does it mean clean them? Does it mean paint the room? Does it mean take a bunch of the junk, the trash, the potato chip, empty potato chip bag wrappers and throw them in the trash can? What does it mean? Does she tell you? When she said, go clean your room, William, does she tell you exactly all the things she wants you to do? So she didn't tell you exactly what she wanted to do, yet you knew what to do. All right, so now I got another question for you. That's an excellent answer. And I know you got an answer to this, but I want you to tell everybody, how did you know what she meant? By the way, when you said you knew, there was a look of complete, absolute certainty on your face. It's not like you're kind of like, well, I knew. You said it like, I knew. How did you know?
We'd had the conversation before. That was trial and error.
Okay.
Because when you didn't do it the first, you got to go back and do it again. You didn't finish that time, you got to go do it again. The third time, I knew without a shadow of doubt, I got to do everything. Nothing else said.
And so the next time she said, go clean your room, you already knew what she meant. You didn't need to do it the three-step process didn't need to happen. Okay, so it took 4 times. All right. All right. Now, after you knew, were there ever some times where she told you to clean your room, you did it, and she still needed you to go back and fix anything?
No.
That's a good son right there. That's a good son. How about y'all? After you knew what she meant, Were there ever any times where she said, go clean your room? And she came back and looked and said, no, it still ain't right.
It's always a problem with her. So you could do it as perfect as you could do it, and she's going to find something that she wanted different than she told you the first time. But like, Mom, you didn't tell me that the first time. At least that's how my mama is. Y'all know.
And it's not because you didn't put your absolute best effort. That you never failed to give it your absolute best.
No, sometimes I didn't do my best. I just was ready to be finished. Now, there are times that I did it right. Now, and I did my absolute best, but then there were times where I was like, Lord, have mercy. I'm just ready to do something else now. I'm ready to do what I want to do.
Okay. So I can relate to that. That was my style. When your mama told you, go clean your room, did she tell you exactly when she wanted you to clean the room?
Yeah, she'll say right now, go clean your room right now.
When mama says, go clean your room, when does she want you to do it? Tomorrow? Next week? Next month? When you get around to it? But yet it isn't in the statement, go clean your room. The words are not in there when. But you know when.
It was the expression that she gave you when she said it.
And when did she want you to clean the room?
When you heard that expression, you meant you know it was right then.
Not when the word go came out, when the sound "g" came out. That's when you need to go clean your room. In other words, by the time she got in the room, you were already supposed to be in the room cleaning it.
The fear of the tone of the voice.
So, some things you don't need to be told if you're obedient and submissive. You don't need to have all the details. But when you when you're a little boy and you never cleaned your room before, your mama's been cleaning your room because you're the baby, you're too little, and all of a sudden she's kind of like, well, it's time for you, you're kind of making a mess, it's time for you to clean. And she tells you to go clean your room. You might do your best, but you don't really understand. So then she has to tell you again. And maybe that happens a few times. But then as you get a little older, when she says to go clean your room, was Wanda going to come back in and check on it?
Yeah, and she come with a switch too.
She was coming to check. Here's another question. Before your mama told you to clean the room, did she just say it randomly? Or was it because she done been in the room and looked at it?
She knew us well enough that whether we was going to do it or not. Like, it depends. Like, sometimes she'll go back there, but then she'll say, I know y'all ain't done that room because I know you.
All right. So then sometimes she would just be on a schedule. Like, I ain't said clean your room in 2 weeks. It's time to tell that child to go clean their room. Because I know what it's looking like. But sometimes it's because she's inspected it. After she cleans the room, what's the chance she's going to come back in after she sees you outside playing? Or you say, I'm getting ready to go somewhere, go with a friend. What's the chance she's going to go back and check the room for you? 120%. As soon as the sun is going to come up tomorrow, she's going to check the room. If your mother tells you to clean your room, you see, because that statement is not very long, doesn't have much detail in it, could it be, under the right circumstances of life, be taken to mean go over to your friend's house and play video games.
You bring it back old memories. This is fun.
It has a purpose, by the way.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, I did do that. Clean and okay. She leave the house, go to work, and I wait till the end of the day and show up to do whatever she asked me to do. The last 5-10 minutes before I know she would show up. And
What you do is you take all the stuff, you open the top drawer, you take all the stuff on top of your thing, you sweep it off in that.
No.
You take all the dirty laundry and all the other stuff and throw it in the closet and close the door.
No. I had a pillowcase and most of the stuff was in the pillowcase.
All right.
And it went under the bed, and I might run the vacuum cleaner real quick.
She did beat him.
Yeah.
What do you mean she should have beat him? She did beat him.
Memories are bad. These are bad memories.
But is it possible that when your mom says, go clean your room, she actually, if you look at it from the right angle, because words are slippery things, could it mean go over to your friend's house down the street and go play video games?
If you don't want to do it,
So how could it mean that if you don't want to do it?
because you're willing to do what you want to do. Even though she said clean the room, you want to go to play videos. I mean, it's consequences, and you may do it, but it's consequences either way. You can either get a good result, or you're going to get a bad result. And you know what that bad result is. It's going to get tore up.
So what you're saying is you could twist her words to make them mean that.
Twisting it. You're basically just doing what you want to do. You're not twisting. You're just not. You want me to clean the room. I don't want to clean the room. I want to go play. And it's consequences when you do go play with the right, with the right parent. Just like now I was told not to leave the house. I didn't leave at that time, but I left to be her back. But
Don't leave the house. So she didn't leave at that time.
she got off early. She got off early that day.
There we go. She said, don't leave the house. I didn't leave the house then, but I knew when she won't go be home. She didn't say don't leave the house then. You see?
I left the house. I figured I could get back to the house before she get there. And I did it for a long time, but by and by, Lord, gee, cross the path. I can feel it right now. He's speechless.
Okay. So what's the relevance of this? This is how you can treat God. Just like that. Not only can you, there are times where you do. And there are plenty of people who can come up with a lot of fancy footwork and a lot of flashy words to explain why it doesn't mean what it does mean. And people actually make a living off of doing this. And I'm talking about make a good living. They call them attorneys. That's what attorneys do. And guess what? There's some good to it because in our constitutional system, you have the right. It's an adversarial system. So the state says you committed a crime and they prosecute you for the crime. But you have some rights. The state can't just say, you did the crime, take you away, put you in jail for however much time they want. It's an adversary. You get to present your facts. They have to tell you who the witnesses are that they are accusing you. That's a constitutional right, Sixth Amendment. You get the right to an attorney. Fifth Amendment, the state cannot compel you to testify against yourself. The Supreme Court has ruled that this means you have the right to remain silent. They can't say, well, were you here and did you do that? And so he said, I'm not making any comments. You talk to my attorney. Well, what you got to hide? That makes me suspicious of you because you won't speak. You can't do that. The state can't do it. It's not, being silent is not suspicious. The cop might say that, but in court, the judge is going to say, well, he's exercising his constitutional rights. He sure did. A whole bunch of people did. Donald Trump did it, 400 times? And you have a right to do that. Now, he made the mistake of saying, I forget the phrase, but if I were him, I would have said, you can't compel me to testify. I'm being silent. I'm not going to say, because I might be guilty, I'm going to be silent. I'm not going to say that. I plead the fifth. Yes, sir, I plead the fifth. That's right. You have some rights. And so in this system, this means there's a whole class of people that it's their job to defend you. Well, what if you're indefensible? What if you did it? Their job is to defend you, to put the best defense that they can put forward. So these people, first of all, they first have to get an undergraduate degree and have to do very well in it. If they barely go to college and barely graduate, can't go to law school. So you got to do well in school. And then you got to go to law school for 3 years, and it's very tough. It's not like you just go and take some lectures, and at the end you take a quiz, and if you do pretty well on it, it's a tough thing to go to law school. It's 3 years worth of tough, grueling work. And what's it all about? It's learning the law, but it's also learning how to take any situation, and come up with a defense for it. Your mom and daddy burnt your toast, so you killed them because you don't like your toast burnt. That's why you did it. Well, a lawyer, his job is to come and get you found not guilty, and this can happen. How can you be found not guilty when you killed your mom and daddy because they burned your toast? That's why there's a profession. That's their job to do. There's another profession that can do the same thing. They're called pastors. They can do it too. Politicians can do it. Theologians can do it. Scholars can do it. Philosophers can do it. They learn to take any idea and that you can present a reason why anything is true. You can present why pigs can fly. You can present why rain falls up. You can present that actually when you think up is up and down is down, that actually up is down and down is up. And you might think, well, I'm not going to be fooled by that. I'm going to tell you there are people that are so good at doing this that when they finish talking, you might think that pigs can fly. They're good. They're very good. One of the ideas that people use to do this is whether or not when something is said that the words are alive. They're living. And what they mean by this is that, so somebody tells you to do something. Well, they said that in the past. And when they said it in the past, they weren't thinking about how things will be in the future. Because things change. They evolve with time. And so when you take the law, or you take a rule, or you take something somebody said, you've got to take it over time and apply it in the situation that you're in. Well, that's true. That is true. You know, God said, don't murder. So when something happens where I have an opportunity to kill somebody, it doesn't, when God said don't murder, it didn't give instructions like, well, Graydon, on such a day when somebody does this and that and the other, don't murder them. He just said don't murder. So I got to put that into practice at that moment. So it is true that the statement was made in the past, but it gets applied in some situation in the future. Just like your mama told you to clean your room, but she didn't tell you when. She didn't tell you whether to dust. She didn't tell you whether to vacuum. You got to figure that out in the future. So it is alive. And in fact, they'll use a text like Hebrews chapter 4, verse 12, where it says the word of God is living and active, sharper than any other two-edged sword, dividing even to joints and marrow. You see, it says the Bible is alive, and it is alive. When I put it into practice, it's alive, it's active. It's not just some dead thing in the past that doesn't have any relevance. It's relevant. But here's what some people say. They say, so you see, what that means is that when it was said, it can mean one thing. But then when it comes time to do it, it can mean something completely different. See, that's another idea. That's not that it's alive because when I put it into practice, it's taking those words in the past and making them alive. That is claiming that the words actually changed their meaning. And that when I put it into practice, I didn't say it. I didn't make the rule. I didn't write the law. I didn't speak from God. But I get to decide what it means when I put it into practice. Now, this is what people who talk about living documents, this is what they mean. And this is why, even though in numerous places, like Romans 1, men being sexually involved with other men and women being sexually involved with other women is explicitly condemned as wrong. Not just in that place, but in others. That one is very difficult to get around. That's why people can do the two-step, shuffle the buffalo. And when they finish talking, they can make you think, actually, maybe it is okay. Because they believe that the words of God change over time to fit the situation. So it's not that when I put it into practice, I'm making it alive. It's that I'm actually deciding what God meant. And when I decide he means something, that's what he means. That is dangerous. And that is what this guy here, when it says lovers of pleasure more than lovers of God, having a form of godliness but denying the power thereof, from such turn away. That's what this guy is doing.
So if a man steals something because he needed it, it fits his needs because he needs it right now, it's okay, is what you're trying to tell me. I can twist the words that way. Because I need this right now, it's okay for me to steal. It don't work. Thou shalt not steal means thou shalt not steal. Doesn't fit the situation.
About 10 years ago, an Episcopal priest in England said that exact thing. He said, there's some people that are so poor, they got to feed their family. Children are starving. They're corporations, greedy corporations, that they're making money hands over fist on the top of poor people. So if poor people have got to steal to feed their families, it's okay. He said that exact thing, preached it from the pulpit.
But I think, though, you got to look at it this way. When you get into philosophy and philosophical thoughts and things like that, you got to, first of all, we have to agree that there is such thing as absolute truth. If you don't say this is absolute truth, then anybody can twist it. But if you hold this to be absolute truth, then it doesn't matter what they say, it doesn't change for you, because it's still absolute truth. But I think when you get into, like you were talking about, like ethical situation, you look at the situation to determine what's true according to the truth situation instead of looking at truth as truth. And the other thing, I think Donald Trump, of all the negative things that he's done, he did define something you call alternate truth. That there's no absolute truth. That's why he gets away with so many things, because it's an alternate truth. It's that person's sense of what's reality. And a lot of time our sense of reality is based upon self. What's in it for me? And I think that's why you get so many twisted truths in church and anywhere else. Because if he was writing here, if you think about it, he was talking to a bunch of church folks that had he was talking to a bunch of church people who had gotten into this stuff. He wasn't talking to, because the letters written to church folks. So they had gotten like that, where they had gotten into alternate truth. That's why you have so many debates in church and so many doctrines in church. Can you do this? Can you do this? Can you not do that? You know, over the last 40 years, I've seen 10, 12, about 20 different changes in doctrine. But it didn't start off like that way, because what happened? It was something somebody wanted to do. So they redefined the doctrine to meet their needs.
Sometimes there are things that we teach that people have to do, and we bind it on people, and they're not in the Bible. And when we do this, we actually give people the opportunity to unbind the things that God said. Because then what they can do is say, well, all y'all do is just make up a bunch of rules. That thing over here that you say God said, that's just another one of them crazy rules you made up out of thin air. And let me tell you, the idea of that there is no absolute truth is called relativism. The world believes in relativism. Most people, if you believe that there's absolute truth, you might think, well, obviously there's absolute truth. I know that. The average guy on the street thinks you're crazy.
I'll give you an example. Before I left where I'm at now, right, me and this guy that I was working with every Sunday, he told me, now y'all, this is crazy, the thing, right? And I told him, he told me that he believed that the Bible was a book of allegories. And then I said, but you know they have over 25,000 documental truths and evidence to prove that the stuff in the Bible happened. How can you say it's allegories? And he said, well, I just believe that there are stories that they tell to basically as a principles for you to live your life by. That's what he told me. And I looked at him and I said, but they have documented evidential proof that this stuff happened. So how can you say it's an allegory? People really believe this stuff.
I'm telling you. I don't think this, but the average man on the street thinks you're crazy. You are crazy. You're out of your mind. And so, if you believe in the Bible and you want to put it into practice and you think it says some things that you need to do, and you need to not dilly-dally about it, you need to go on and do it right now, and you don't need to try to make it say what you want it to say. You need to do it just like it says, even if it's uncomfortable. If you believe this, if that's what you think, all the people around you, they think you're silly. And if you if the way you make your decisions is you count noses, okay? See, 27 for it, 6 against it. Well, I'm going to go with the 27. Then you're not going to follow the Bible. If that's how you live your life, by counting noses, you can forget sticking with what God said because you're the crazy one. If you follow the crowd and the crowd's going to go off the cliff, you're going off the cliff.
The sad part is most of us follow the crowd, not necessarily knowingly doing it, but we doing it because we don't realize that what we are fighting against. There are spiritual forces that's working against us too and trying to change our mind. But gradually, it's like the story of the frog in the water. You put a frog in the water and you turn the heat up slowly. After a while, the frog became accustomed to it. And when he figured out what was going on, he was already cooked. And it's true.
And, you know, there are some things that I have bound on people that I come to find out they weren't in the Bible. I've done it. I'm not happy about that, but I have done it. But that doesn't mean that I should unbind what God said. And I'm going to tell you that some of us are weak on some of the things God said because you've been influenced by the world. I could name some of them. I won't because I'm looking at the clock. I'll let you decide. I don't know. It's a good question. She asked, is it weak or is it a choice? You know, I don't know. I'm not sure. As one of my sons would say, it's a fine line between those two. If you aren't careful, you will make God say what you want him to say. How'd it go? B said she tried it. How'd it go?
It went okay for a while, but no matter what I thought, I had to go back with the word to be blessed.
The issue I ran into was people worried about what God say. I said, never. If you want to know what God say, stick with the word. Read the book. Now that's been my biggest defense. Now, if you want to tell me what God said, then it should be in the book. If it ain't in the book.
One of the most dangerous questions that you can ask. And you should, sometimes you need to ask it. So I'm not saying never ask this. But one of the most dangerous, I didn't say don't ask it. I said it's a dangerous question. When you ask, so do you think the Bible says so and so and so and so and so? Because you see, often that question presupposes that you have an answer you've already picked. I knew this brother. He must have asked me this 50 times. He said, so Greg, when you tithe, is that tithing on your net pay or your gross pay? Well, I never answered his question, okay? I wasn't going to answer it. But I think we both know why he asked that question. It wasn't just out of curiosity. He had a reason for asking, a very personal reason for asking that question. What's that? I could, but I didn't. That's a good answer. You want the net blessing or the gross blessing? Do you control what God means? Is it alive? I'm going to let you answer that question. I'm going to hand the service over to our pastor.
God bless you tonight. We thank God for the teaching. As one of the things that we can gather also from this is that it's important for you to have the Spirit of God in you and be submissive to it, because you can, and be submissive to it, meaning that you allow it to lead you, because it's not easy to walk this way. And when we try to find the easy way, then we find ourselves getting into flesh. We started doing things that, so this is a very important lesson, and thank God for Brother Graydon. And, you all has given your input, but it's necessary for us to make sure that we walk according to the word of